Welcome, everyone, to our deep dive today. We're going to be sharing some stories, real stories that are, frankly, unsettling. These aren't made up. They're drawn from actual experiences, some quite chilling, some involving what profound betrayal. We're aiming to tell these in a way that's, engaging, maybe a bit alarming, but definitely captivating. Prepare yourselves. Right, let's start with a true crime case. This one really shook the UK. It's about a missing child, a huge search, and a twist. A betrayal that's almost unbelievable. We're talking about 9-year-old Shannon Matthews. She vanished back on February 19, 2008 in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire. Only about half a mile from her house, her mother, Karen Matthews, she reported her missing. And the police response was immediate and huge. Over 250 officers, 60 detectives, specialist dogs. It was the biggest investigation in that region for like 30 years. It got national attention fast. A big reward was offered. Karen herself went on TV pleading for Shannon's return. But pretty quickly, suspicion started to swirl, both from the public and the media, questions of the family about Karen's life, suggestions maybe they were involved somehow.
Yeah, and that public scrutiny aspect is really interesting here. It shows how quickly opinions can form, especially with intense media focus. Some commentators pointed out a kind of, class-based hypocrisy maybe, suggesting that a middle-class family might not have faced the same intense personal scrutiny so early on. It really highlights how complex public perception gets in these situations.
That's a really difficult layer on top of everything else. So after 24 days, Shannon was found alive. She was discovered hidden in a compartment under a bed in an apartment just about a mile from her home. The apartment belonged to a man named Michael Donovan. Now you'd think that was the end of the nightmare, but it wasn't. It was just the start of finding out the real horror. It came out that Shannon had been drugged regularly with temazepam, a sedative, for almost 2 years before she even disappeared, just to keep her compliant.
That detail, the drugging, it's just chilling. It points to such long-term premeditation. It wasn't just the abduction itself. This was sustained abuse, control. Makes you wonder, what signs were missed, what support wasn't there for her.
And then the absolutely shocking truth came out. Karen Matthews, Shannon's own mother, was arrested. She and Donovan had planned the whole thing, masterminded it, the motive. They wanted to stage Shannon's disappearance, have Donovan find her like a hero, and then collect the £50,000 reward money from a charity fund. They were going to split it.
Unbelievable. Using her own child.
Yeah, just cold, calculated, exploiting everyone's sympathy.
It really shows a disturbing side of things, doesn't it? How someone could manipulate public goodwill for money centered around their own child's trauma. And the planning involved. It's often different in these family-involved cases compared to stranger abductions.
Both Karen Matthews and Michael Donovan were found guilty. Kidnapping, false imprisonment, perverting the course of justice. And Shannon, well, she needed intensive psychiatric help. She was put into foster care, given a new identity. Same for Karen's other kids. Just imagine the scars left by something like that. Your own mother. The level of cruelty there is just, it's hard to process. But sometimes the threat isn't this big, elaborate scheme. Sometimes it's quieter, more persistent. Someone unseen just encroaching on your life. So our next story is from a young woman who got caught in this terrifying spiral. Stalked by a stranger whose presence became this inescapable nightmare. It started, strangely enough, with a blank envelope. Inside were concert tickets and a love letter. The writer said they were planning a surprise, signed off, "I'm someone you know." Now she had a boyfriend, but something just felt off. Winning a competition she didn't enter, getting tickets the same day, it didn't add up. So smartly, she decided not to go to the concert.
That initial feeling, that gut instinct, it's so important. Often, that's the first sign something's wrong, even if things look okay on the surface. Trusting that feeling is key in situations like this.
Definitely. And things escalated fast. The very next day, another letter. But the tone was totally different. Aggressive. "Why didn't you come, you idiot? Don't pretend like you aren't interested." That sort of thing. The gentlemanly act was gone. Then the phone calls started. She didn't have a mobile back then, so it was her home phone. Sometimes once a week, sometimes 3 or 4 times, but always the same thing. Silence. They'd hang up as soon as she answered. This went on for 3 months. Just relentless. She tried to get away. Moved house, hoping for peace. But a month later, another blank envelope in her new letterbox. He'd found her.
The persistence is what's so disturbing here. And the methodical way he tracks her down, even without direct interaction, that feeling of being watched, of your safe space being violated, the psychological impact is immense. It just grinds down your sense of security.
And the worst part, when she finally went to the police, they basically dismissed her. Said things like, "Women who live alone often get lonely," or that she was blowing harmless antics out of proportion. Apparently, stalking laws in Japan weren't really a thing then, not widely recognized anyway, so she had no support.
That's a huge failure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Systemic failure.
Yeah.
For a long time, stalking just wasn't treated as the serious crime it is. It was minimized. And that leaves victims completely vulnerable, makes the trauma even worse.
The whole thing came to a head near a train station during rush hour. A man blocked her path, started muttering at her, "Why didn't you come?" Still fixated on that concert, she loudly asked him to move, trying to get attention from the crowd, and then completely unexpectedly, he just bolted into the street, got hit by a car. He survived, but just imagine. But even that wasn't the end. A coworker of the stalker started spreading rumors, said they were having a lover's quarrel, that she just walked off after he got hit. Horrible lies. Those rumors got back to her fiancé's parents. The engagement ended. She ended up resigning from her job. And even now, 15 years later, she says the trauma is still there. Her hopes for marriage, family, gone. She feels she'll end up alone, all because of him.
It's devastating how deep the impact goes. The stalking itself, the lack of support, the victim blaming, it fundamentally changes a person's life path, their trust, their sense of safety. It's not just a single event. It reshapes everything.
It really is horrifying, especially the failure of the very systems meant to protect people. Okay, let's shift gears slightly to a different kind of unsettling encounter. Something bizarre, found in a place you'd least expect it. Imagine you're hiking, seeking solitude way out in nature, off the main trails, and you stumble onto something deeply disturbing. This happened to an avid hiker, someone who liked those quiet spots, deep in the mountains. One afternoon, hiking near a prefectural border, they saw figures down in a small stream, maybe 100 meters away. At first glance, it looked awful, like a family, 2 adults, 2 children, just standing there, motionless, in the river. And it was getting dark. The hikers' first thought was terrifying. Maybe some kind of collective suicide should they intervene. But something was wrong. They were just too still. So they pulled out binoculars, watched for about 5 minutes. Nothing. No movement at all. And then it hit them. They weren't people. They were mannequins.
That moment of realization,
Right.
going from thinking it's people in danger to realizing it's something else entirely, that's profoundly unsettling. Our brains try to make sense of human shapes, especially in groups. When that gets twisted, like with mannequins in a river, it creates this really strong sense of wrongness, the uncanny valley effect, but in the wild. It messes with your perception of reality, of safety.
Yeah, exactly. So the hiker, probably feeling a mix of fear and morbid curiosity, crept closer. And yes, confirmed, 4 mannequins, dressed in clothes, standing in the water. But then the details. Each mannequin had a name painted on its front. And they were covered in small holes, like from shotgun pellets. And the most chilling part, a broken box cutter blade was sticking out of the back of one of the child mannequins.
Wow, okay, that changes everything. The names, the holes, the blade, that's not just weird, that feels deliberate, ritualistic almost. It suggests some kind of symbolic violence. Someone went to a lot of effort to haul these heavy things out there and stage this scene. The intent behind that, it's deeply disturbing. A silent, terrifying message left for someone to find. Or maybe for no one.
The hiker was, understandably, terrified. They just fled, got back down the mountain as fast as they could, thinking about the effort involved, carrying those heavy, bulky things all that way. Who would do that? And why? It's just this unsolved, incredibly creepy mystery left out there in the mountains. Gives you chills just thinking about it.
Right.
A scene like that, so deliberately placed to disturb. It sticks with you. And speaking of things that stick with you, sometimes even a simple object, like a lost purse, can be twisted into something terrifying. Our last story for today. It shows how an act of kindness, maybe even driven by a little loneliness, can turn into this calculated, scary game. The narrator was living alone, feeling a bit lonely. He found a purse in a park, a red purse, heavy. He had this sort of romantic notion maybe he'd meet the owner, so he did the right thing, turned it into the police, had to fill out all the forms, give his details.
And that vulnerability, the loneliness, the hope for connection, that becomes the leverage point, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Predators are often adept at spotting that kind of thing, turning a good intention into an opening.
Exactly. Later that same night, his doorbell rings. 3 times. He opens the door and there's this beautiful woman, red miniskirt, says she's the owner of the purse, and she just walks right into his apartment, doesn't wait for an invitation, stands really close. He said her smile felt totally fake, painted on. The whole thing just felt eerie. So 3 days pass. He starts feeling uneasy. Realizes the police never contacted him to say the purse was claimed, and how did she get his address so fast? He goes back to the police station, asks about it. The officer is stunned, says the owner never contacted them, never picked up the purse, the only explanation. And it's terrifying. She must have dropped the purse on purpose, watched him find it, followed him home.
That's incredible manipulation. Just astounding, using his kindness, his loneliness against him, planning it all out to get access to his home, his private space. It really underscores how calculated predatory behavior can be, finding ways to breach trust within seemingly normal interactions.
And it didn't end there. About a year later, he tried to push the incident out of his mind. But then he saw her again. The same woman. Red miniskirt. She was trying to hide behind a telephone pole across the street, just staring at him. Watching him. Even now, he says, seeing a red miniskirt gives him this instant negative reaction. It's become this symbol of that terrifying, calculated encounter. The fear just lingered.
And that's the long tail of trauma, isn't it? One incident, one calculated act of intrusion and manipulation can create these lasting triggers. It changes how you see the world, makes you wary. That red miniskirt becomes a permanent reminder of violated safety. It's incredibly impactful.
Absolutely. Each of these stories, really, whether it's a huge crime like Shannon Matthews or these intensely personal things, they remind you how fragile peace can be and the dark possibilities that exist, sometimes just under the surface of everyday life. The real world can definitely be scarier than fiction.
Indeed. And exploring these narratives, unsettling as they are, helps us think critically. Maybe recognize warning signs, question things a bit more, and perhaps appreciate the safety we do have when we have it. Trusting our gut feelings is often more important than we realize.
We hope these accounts gave you something to think about, maybe made you look at things a little differently. If you found this deep dive compelling, please do give it a like, maybe share it with someone else who appreciates these kinds of stories. And definitely subscribe to our channel, Horror Docx, for more explorations into the chilling and the unknown. We'll be back with more stories that dig into those shadows. Until then, stay safe out there and try to be aware.